Captain Harlan Reed was 71 years old and smelled of salt, diesel, and the particular kind of patience that only comes from 50 years on the water. He lived on a weathered houseboat named Patience Tide to slip 17 in the quiet end of Carver Harbor, East Coast. The boat was 42 feet of faded teal paint, patched fiberglass, and a wheelhouse that had seen better decades. Every morning at 4:47 a.m., Harlan stepped onto the deck in faded denim overalls, a threadbare flannel shirt, and the same battered captain's hat his father had given him in 1978. He brewed coffee in a dented percolator, lit his pipe, and watched the sun rise over the breakwater exactly as it had done for most of his life. Tourists paid him $60 for a half-day charter on his 28-foot open fisherman, Miss Ellie, named after his late wife. He took them out for striped bass, taught kids how to tie a clinch knot, and never once raised his voice even when some Wall Street type lost a $300 rod over the side. Locals called him Old Cap. They waved when his truck, a 1997 Dodge with more rust than metal, rumbled past the bait shop. They figured he was a harmless old waterman who never quite made it big. Harlan let them think it. Only 3 lawyers in 3 different cities, a network of holding companies, and the U.S. Coast Guard records, if anyone knew where to look, understood the truth. Captain Harlan Reed controlled the largest privately held commercial shipping fleet on the East Coast, 47 vessels, bulk carriers, container ships, tankers, and owned controlling interests in 4 deepwater ports from Maine to Virginia. The empire was buried under so many LLCs, blind trusts, and offshore entities that even the IRS had stopped trying to draw a straight line to his name 30 years ago. He had built it brick by brick, voyage by voyage, starting with one rust bucket freighter he bought at auction in 1989 after Ellie died of cancer, and left him with a 4-year-old daughter and a mountain of hospital bills. He never told a soul, not even his daughter, Claire. Claire Reed was 33 now, a marine biologist with a gentle laugh in her mother's hazel eyes. She had come home to Carver Harbor 6 months earlier with Travis Langford on her arm. Travis was 38, 6'3", with a jawline that looked carved by a yacht designer and a voice trained at elite boarding schools. He wore white linen shirts unbuttoned just enough to show the expensive watch, drove a Porsche Cayenne that growled like it was offended by potholes, and referred to himself as a maritime visionary. Within 2 weeks of meeting Harlan, Travis had nicknamed him the Old Salt and started jokingly offering to buy Miss Ellie so Harlan could finally retire to something with air conditioning that worked. Harlan smiled, nodded, and went back to mending nets. The pressure arrived like a slow tide. At first it was subtle. Travis would lean on the railing of Patience during Sunday dinners and say things like, "This harbor has so much potential, Cap. Imagine proper docks, restaurants with valet parking, slips that can handle 70-footers. The kind of place people from Boston and New York would actually want to visit." Claire would squeeze Harlan's hand under the table, eyes hopeful. She wanted her father to be taken care of. She wanted Travis to respect him. Harlan listened. He always listened. He had learned long ago that the sea teaches you everything you need to know about men. Watch how they treat the lines when the wind picks up. Travis treated every rope like it was beneath him. Travis's big idea was Langford Harbor Resort, a $180 million luxury marina, boutique hotel, and yacht club complex. The renderings showed glass towers where the old fish shacks now stood, infinity pools overlooking berths for superyachts, and a members-only club where the bait shop used to be. The only thing standing in the way was a cluster of old commercial harbor rights and leases that no developer had been able to clear for 20 years. Travis needed Harlan to sign them over. As family, he kept saying. Harlan drank his coffee and said nothing. The engagement party was scheduled for the last Saturday in June on a rented 92-foot azimut named Victory Lap. Travis spared no expense. Chartered from Newport, white-gloved crew, a string quartet, lobster towers, and enough champagne to float a dinghy. The invitation said black-tie optional, nautical chic preferred. Harlan received his in the mail with a handwritten note from Travis. "Looking forward to toasting the future, Cap. Maybe wear something nice for Claire." Harlan read it on the deck of Patience at sunrise, folded it neatly, and tucked it into the pocket of his overalls. On the day of the party, he dressed exactly as he always did. Clean overalls, blue flannel, captain's hat. He polished his work boots but left the salt stains on the leather. Then he stepped into the small skiff he kept for harbor runs and motored out to Victory Lap at the appointed hour. The sun was low and golden when he tied up. Music drifted across the water. Travis stood at the top of the gangway in a white dinner jacket, arm around Claire in a flowing turquoise dress. When he saw Harlan, his smile tightened for half a second. "Cap, you made it." "Come aboard." Travis's voice carried that particular tone wealthy men use when they're performing warmth. "We saved you a seat at the captain's table." Harlan climbed the steps slowly, deliberately. Every crew member and guest watched the old man in overalls board the gleaming superyacht. A few smirked, most were polite. Claire hugged him tight. "Dad, you look perfect," she whispered. "You look like your mother," he said, kissing her forehead. The evening unfolded like a carefully staged production. Travis gave a speech about vision, legacy, and honoring the old guard while building the new. He gestured toward Harlan. "This man right here taught me everything I know about the sea, well, the parts that still matter." Laughter rippled. Harlan sat quietly, nursing a single glass of water. Then Travis raised his glass for the big toast. "To moving Captain Reed into the 21st century, to Langford Harbor Resort, and to the future we're going to build together, starting with those harbor rights. Cap, we can't do it without you. What do you say?" "Family," the crowd clapped. Phones came out. Claire looked at her father with shining, hopeful eyes. Harlan stood up slowly. The deck went quiet except for the water lapping against the hull. He reached into the breast pocket of his flannel and pulled out a single envelope, thick and cream-colored. He opened it and began reading in the same calm, measured voice he used when giving sailing instructions to nervous tourists. "Mr. Travis Langford, pursuant to the Commercial Harbor Development Act and the lease agreements dated 1997, 2004, 2011, and 2022, held by Reed Maritime Holdings, LLC. I hereby deny any transfer, assignment, or development rights to the properties known as Carver North Commercial Basin, slips 1 through 34, and associated deepwater access channels." Travis's smile froze. Harlan continued, "Furthermore, as majority stakeholder in East Coast Port Authority Partners, I have instructed the board to reject the variance application filed last month under Langford Development Group. The environmental impact study submitted contained inaccuracies." He looked directly at Travis. "My fleet uses those berths, my men unload cargo there, my contracts feed this town. You wanted to move me into the 21st century. Son, I never left it, I just never needed to advertise where I dropped anchor." A stunned silence fell over the yacht. Claire's hand went to her mouth. "Dad," Harlan turned to her, voice softening. "I own the largest private shipping operation on this coast, sweetheart. 47 vessels, 4 ports. Everything Travis wanted to upgrade has been under my control since before he was born. I kept it quiet because I wanted you to choose your own life, not live in the shadow of what I built after we lost your mother." He looked back at Travis, who had gone pale beneath his tan. "You mocked my boat, you mocked my clothes. You mocked my life, that's fine, but you tried to use my daughter to take what wasn't yours, that's not fine." Travis started to speak. Harlan raised one weathered hand. "I'm not angry, son. The sea taught me anger is a luxury small boats can't afford. You have 24 hours to withdraw your applications. After that, the permits you already secured through back channels will be audited." Publicly, he set the envelope on the teak table. Then Captain Harlan Reed buttoned the top button of his flannel, adjusted his old hat, and walked down the gangway to his skiff. The string quartet had stopped playing. Every guest watched the old man in overalls motor away into the gathering dusk, the little outboard puttering like it always did, steady, unhurried, unstoppable. Claire came to Patience the next morning at dawn. She found her father on the deck, mending a net as if nothing had happened. She sat beside him for a long time before speaking. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Harlan kept working the needle through the mesh. "Because money changes how people look at you. I wanted you to see your father, not a balance sheet. I wanted you to marry a man who loved you, not what he thought you could inherit. After your mother died, I swore I'd never let what I built cost me the only thing that mattered." Tears slipped down Claire's cheeks. "Travis left last night," he said. "He said he needed to reassess the deal flow." Harlan nodded once. "Good." He set the net down and took his daughter's hand, calloused palm against soft skin. "You and I are going to fix up Miss Ellie this summer. Teach your kids, if you have them, one day how to read the tides. The rest can stay where it belongs, in the ledgers." 6 months later, Carver Harbor looked mostly the same. The fish shack still sold lobster rolls. The bait shop still had the best coffee in town. Patience still sat at slip 17. But now Claire worked part-time on the charters with her father. She had quietly started a marine conservation program, using some of the family resources Harlan finally began sharing. Travis's development plans were dead in the water, publicly rejected after a quiet but devastating regulatory review. On quiet evenings, when the harbor lights came on and the water turned to black glass, Harlan would stand at the railing of Patience with his pipe, looking out at the breakwater. Sometimes he thought about the young widower who had once stood in this same spot with nothing but grief and a 4-year-old girl. He had built an empire so his daughter would never have to struggle the way he did. And in the end, the empire had done exactly what it was supposed to do, protect what mattered. Captain Harlan Reed, old salt, harmless waterman, quiet owner of fleets and fortunes, would tip his battered hat to the night, step inside the wheelhouse, and brew another pot of coffee. The sea kept its secrets, so did he. Epilogue: 1 year later, a glossy business magazine ran a small article titled "The Invisible Shipping Baron of Carver Harbor." Harlan received a copy in the mail and used it to prop up a wobbly table leg on Patience. Claire married again 2 years later, a quiet charter captain from the next harbor over who knew how to tie knots and didn't own a single white linen shirt. They had a daughter they named Ellie. Every summer, on the anniversary of the night on Victory Lap, the whole family took Miss Ellie out at dawn. Harlan stood at the wheel in his overalls and captain's hat, Claire beside him, little Ellie in a tiny life vest. The old man would look across the water toward the empty site where Travis's resort never rose and speak the same words every time. Some men build empires so the world will notice them. Others build them so their families never have to. Then he would throttle forward, the little boat cutting cleanly through the waves, heading toward the rising sun exactly as it had done for 71 years. Steady, patient, unsinkable.